Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Messa, The Spin, out April 11th on Metal Blade Records. The album has 7 tracks, 42 minutes in length, and this is the band's 4th full-length studio album. They are an Italian doom metal band. Now, having said that, this album is a lot more than just a doom record. We're going to get into that as we talk about the sound, but the impact that the diversity of that same sound has on the design of the record is something that you can't just look over. This album is an album that really feels at times like a pure roller coaster ride from song to song, but in all of its diversity and in all of its eclectic nature, they found a way of connecting the dots between these songs and making the overall experience of the album very cohesive. And that's not always the case, specifically if you have an album that has this much diversity, that is this much of a roller coaster ride. It's very easy to disconnect from song to song or feel like you have to re-engage with the album after each and every single track. And this record allows you to see so many different facets of what the band does and what the band is all about as far as their sound is concerned. But at the same time, the overall record really feels like a single body of work. The design of the album, how the nuances of this record, how the different influences of this record are introduced in a very slow manner from song to song, really helps build up the record as a collective and makes the overall album a lot stronger. Now, talking about that sound and that eclectic and diverse nature of it, saying that this is a doom record is not necessarily a lie, but it doesn't tell you all the truth either. This is at the core a doom album. It has doom elements in the sound, in the vocals, in the ambiance, and more so in the atmosphere. That's undeniable. It's there. But then you're also going to find that some songs have a lot more of a goth rock essence to it. Some tracks have a little bit of a progressive feel, vibe, and also there's a lot of jazz elements throughout the entire record. So how do you blend all of these different pieces, all of these different ideas into something that it's cohesive from start to finish? I think you can look at all of those influences, either be progressive, goth, jazz, doom. All of them have a sense of darkness to it. There's always a sense of despair that could be associated with a lot of those genres or how those genres can be presented. So if you look at what all of them can give you from the perspective of what uniquenesses they put forward, you're not necessarily looking at how you can connect them with the commonalities that they have in mind. And that's exactly where this album works and how this album functions as a whole. Sound-wise, they were able to connect all of these different ideas through those commonalities, through that common sense of darkness, and that is something that allows the record to have a red line all the way through it. And then to expose that idea and that essence, they have a magnificent soundscape throughout the entire record. This is an album that from a soundscape standpoint, I should say, it has this clear, crisp approach. They were able to create songs that feel dark, that feel somber, but the songs are not narrow. The songs don't feel like you're boxed in when you're listening to them. A lot of the tracks on this record have massive sound, massive size. The songs feel epic at times, and the combination of that size, that epicness to it, with that commonality of darkness really allows the sound on this entire album to stand out, overall to stand out. Then obviously you could look at some more individual elements. The guitars is one of the most dominant, consistent, dominant elements of this record when it comes to the sound. I thought the solos on the album are phenomenal. Phenomenal solos on this record, really bringing not only extra life, but extra quality to the way the songs are executed, adding to the vibe that the song have, adding to the atmosphere that the song brings, and encapsulating it in a more energetic, in a brighter, more vibrant way, adding even more of a vibrant touch to the overall aspect that the songs have. But also the melodies, the rhythms that the guitars put forward, allowing you to see a darker, gothier side of the band, but also bringing that more doom experience into the forefront, and then infusing some pure rock and roll into the mix. I mean, the guitars are definitely alive and well throughout the entire record. One of the most consistent, if not the most consistent element in terms of what it offers, the quality that it has, and the impact that it offers as far as the overall record is concerned. Then you can talk about the drums, not as rich, not as dynamic as the guitars, but with the same sort of impact in how they define a lot of the moments within the sound within this record. Then you have great execution on piano, like when tracks really need that sort of more classic stripped down vibe, you have that. The jazz elements in the sound on this album are so rich, are so crisp, so clean, extremely well produced, allowing them to almost elevate themselves off of the tracks. So this album sound wise is pristine. That's the best way to describe the sound on this record. The sound is pristine, great, amazing quality throughout. The ability to create darkness on one hand, but still make songs feel so bright and open on the other, really allows those diversities of sound to come in and have a positive impact on the overall album. And then you can move into the vocals. The vocal performance on this record is haunting at times. It's a vocal performance that doesn't have a one-size-fits-all. What it does have is a lot of layers and backing vocals, layered backing vocals, I should say, as far as the vocal performance is concerned. That adds to the vibe, it adds to the atmosphere, it adds to, in some cases, to the darkness of the song, and to the overall darkness of the record. But the cleanliness, the crisp delivery of how the vocals come across, first of all, in the mix, very high, almost off the track, which for an album that has this sort of darkness, that has this sort of dragging out sound, works really well because it puts a huge emphasis on the vocals and it separates them completely from the sound. And I think it works a lot better for a record like this, going with this approach versus having the vocals more blended in with the actual sound. So the vocal performance, haunting, powerful, dynamic to the extent of matching the vibe of the individual songs, but like I said, with that commonality of using layers to the vocals to help give some more of a robust nature to it. But the vocal performance throughout, it's definitely one of the main pillars of the entire album. Now, as far as the record overall is concerned, you could go as far as to say that this is not a very orthodox album in terms of what it offers, in terms of what it presents. The style of doom that the band has, it's definitely not something you hear or see every day. So it's a very unorthodox album sound-wise, in the way that it's built and the way that it's delivered. But that takes nothing away from the album. If anything, actually makes this record a lot more special. This is a very intriguing album. It's such a cool record to listen to because it offers so many different ideas. It brings together so many different sounds, and it still finds its way, or allows the listener to find its way through it across all 7 songs. So great record all around, vocally, musically, and definitely from an atmosphere standpoint. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I picked 3 that illustrate a little bit of what this record is all about because of the differences and uniquenesses that they have. Starting off with Void Meridian, this is the opening song on the album, and immediately you see how vibrant the vocals are. You hear the layers within the vocals, and you see the distance that exists between the vocals and the rest of the sound. Sound-wise is more of a goth rock sound. It has a ton of movement. This album sound-wise is very rich from that perspective, not just in this track, but in a lot of the songs on this record. The sound moves really well, so if you're listening to this on headphones, you're able to detect that movement of the sound a lot better, almost like air, like a breeze, and that also helps give size to the tracks. And this one is a perfect example of that, a track that feels massive in size because of how that sound moves, but it still has that dark ambiance that normally makes tracks a little bit more constricted. The vocals stand out, like I said, they really feel like they are above in the mix, like they're separated from the sound itself. And you notice a lot more of that, especially when you get into the chorus. You also notice a lot more of those layers into the chorus and the dark vibe that they give that specific moment of the song, but the song in general. Great guitar solo on this track, really great guitar solo. Not necessarily my favorite solo on the track, but a great guitar solo nevertheless. And when you look at the construction of the song, it's a very simple approach, but very effective at the same time. Then you have Fire on the Roof, a track that's very guitar focused, very guitar driven, again with soaring vocals, separated themselves from the sound. Great mixture of heavy rock guitar sound, specifically in the chorus, because the verses have a more subdued guitar sound and infuses a little bit more of a synth in the backdrop that creates this almost 80s vibe to the way the verses come across. But then that synth sound drops in the chorus, becoming more guitar focused, more guitar driven, and that's where then more heavy rock presence really comes in. It makes, or it helps make the chorus a little bit more vibrant, both musically and vocally, because that sound really helps propel the vocals even more into the forefront. Another track with a great guitar solo, a more rock and roll, pure rock and roll style guitar solo that's very explosive, that has a lot of energy and really adds value to the way the song is put together. Last but definitely not least, Immolation. This is a really cool track because it opens up, the first half of the song is really a piano and vocal duo, if you will. The piano sounds haunting and the vocals sound even more haunting than the piano. The two together work really well to create this very somber, dark atmosphere vibe for that first half of the song. Then at that halfway point, the guitars come in super explosive, the sound gets heavier, the guitar solo comes in, the track really explodes, and it goes from this very somber, subdued, dark piano vocal duo to a much heavier track with very heavy, thick, even dense at times sound, where the guitars kind of break through that density, but behind the guitars there's really a sense of density in the sound that stays true all the way to the end of the track. So it's really a bipolar song because it has two different ideas, it has two different executions. I should say, same idea, two different executions. And if you listen to the first half of the song, you're never going to imagine that you're going to get what you're going to get in the second half of the song. So really cool track, really showcasing how they're able to bring in different styles, different genres, different influences, in this case in the same song, and really make the experience extremely cohesive and coherent, which is something that you could say about the entire album. This is it, Messa, The Spin, out April 11th on Metal Blade Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, guys.